All right, good morning. Today is August 18th, and it's a little after 10. And with that, Gary, what's on the list?
Thank you, Chair. We'll start with roll call. Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here, and I see Martha trying to get in.
Commissioner Schrader is on her way here shortly. We have several items for your issues today. First is if you can please bring in Nancy Bush. We have coronavirus update from Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of our Emergency Operations Center. And I don't actually see her. There she is. Okay, there he goes. Transition there. And Commissioner Schrader is here now as well. Great. So as soon as Nancy is up and running, Nancy, there you are. Welcome. I've introduced you, so please go ahead with your update.
All right. Thank you. So we'll start with our numbers this morning. And when I talk about the increase, it's the increase from last Wednesday when we did our last report here in the Emergency Operations Center. So Oregon has 23,451 positives, which is up 1,429. There are 388 deaths, which is up 31. And there's 467,776 negatives. Clackamas County has 1,699 positives, which is up 104. We have 50 deaths, which is up 3. There's 45,376 negatives. Multnomah County has 5,387 positives, which is up 331. 102 deaths, which is up 4. 104,922 negatives. Washington County has 3,358 positives, which is up 156. They have 27 deaths, there is no increase there, and 67,743 negatives. Statewide hospitalizations is 140, which is down 22. 37 of those 140 are in ICU beds and 13 are on ventilators. There's 158 adult ICU beds that are available statewide and 774 ventilators available statewide. Our weekly accomplishments for last week, logistics had 30 requests that they completed, and most of those were actually from small businesses. We had 475 food boxes that were handed out. There were 57 showers that were given last week for those that are houseless. 14 Go Team events for behavioral health. 113 inquiries came into our PIC, which is our inquiry center. And we had 19 social media posts with 5,117 engagements. We are in our EOC, we're also planning for September and October. We're looking at staffing needs and what we're gonna need there. And looking forward for services that we're gonna need for the houseless. Also the support line for staffing and other staffing needs here in the EOC. We also continue to look forward to what we're going to be doing when we do get a vaccine and what immunizations are going to look like here in the county to make sure that we do reach everyone. School plans were due yesterday. We received 84. We're expecting 170, so we got over half. We do know that there's still more coming in today. There's still a lot of questions, of course, around schools and some of the new metrics, and we're working with our schools and with OHA as well as Department of Education on those issues. For public health, the case count last week was 150, which is 35.9 per 100,000. So we've had steady case volumes in workplace outbreaks. We had a total of 37 outbreaks with 2 or more cases. 17 of those were in a workplace, 5 were in food or farm. There were 12 long-term care facilities, 1 child facility, and 2 that are under social or other. And that is my report for today, and I'll take any questions.
I don't see any hands.
All right.
Wow.
Wow.
Good one.
Oops.
I have one.
Oh.
Okay. So Nancy, I got a glitch. Couldn't hear how many long-term care facility outbreak.
12.
12.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many of the cases, those are 12 cases or 12 outbreaks?
12 outbreaks, 12
And
facilities.
do we know how many cases?
I don't have that information right here, but I think Dr. President will have that on Thursday.
Okay, so I'm just curious, I saw that there's been progress made on long-term care facilities being able to meet the goal of testing. Do you have any other insight on that for
Yeah, I
us
do.
locally?
Yeah, I do know that long-term care facilities have been working very hard on their testing, as well as obviously controlling COVID within their facilities. And but as you know, it's if you do introduce it into a long-term care facility, which is usually through staff, obviously, it can go very quickly. So I do know that they have more testing and there's more control around that.
And then another question we keep sort of keeping tabs on is the amount of time it takes to get a test back. Has there been any improvement with that since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, so on Thursday, I know Dr. President said that, we aren't hearing as much that it's a problem, but we're still seeing in some cases it's up to a week, which is still an issue.
So that hasn't changed.
Well, it's, we were hearing up to 2 weeks and now we're hearing more up to a week.
Okay. And then my last question last week, I think it's my last question. You never know, I might think of another one. We had talked about concerns with Warm Spring reservation with the lack of water, with their increased COVID cases. And then I saw in the reports that have come through that I read that was some outreach, but I'm just wondering if you could fill in the blanks on some of that and let us know kind of what the status is and if there's any opportunity for us to.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So both Tracy Moreland and I have reached out through different avenues to Warm Springs. I have reached out to my counterpart there, which is Danny Martinez, and I have not heard back from him yet. And I did offer, it's like, please let us know if there's anything we can do here. And I know that Tracy has done the same. I don't think either of us have made the connection, and I know they're extremely busy. And from what I'm understanding, there is still 60% of the reservation, people on the reservation who do not have water or water pressure. So they continue to bring in bottled water. I'm understanding too that they have like a mobile shower as well that they're trying to help the residents with. But I have not heard back from my contact there.
So Tracy and I usually talk every day, and she has reached out. We're trying to groom her to be the liaison to tribes in general because of her relationship, and we've prioritized that as we continue to give continuing education to our policy coordinators. I've really encouraged her to kind of do that kind of work, and that she said exactly what you said, that basically 60% don't have running water. They have reached out, and we're continuing to monitor the situation. But if you need her to give a report with you, Nancy, just let her know and she'll be on if you need that.
Thank you. She and I have been talking pretty frequently about it, but thank you.
Yeah, she's really good.
I'm just curious. I know that there are different organizations in the community that have really stepped up, like NARA's one that has been really working on that crisis. I would be interested in understanding the emergency response. 60% of the population doesn't have access to water. It's a real concern.
Yeah,
Absolutely is.
All right. Commissioner Humberton.
Yes, Nancy, I may not have caught it, but is this because they don't have the infrastructure to their homes for water?
No.
Is the well, are there wells that have gone down?
So yes, it's like their major source of water lost water pressure, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it's a pump or what it is, but it's actually at the water source at their well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. This happened also, just to let you guys know, this is not new for them, unfortunately, because they actually had the same thing happen, seems like around a year and a half ago, and the same thing happened, and they had to order a part, and it took them several months to get the part. So I don't know what this part is, how long it's going to take to get it, but I do know that it's been a concern before.
They, once they get the part, they may want to order another pump and have it on hand. I've lived on wells for many, many years until recently. So having a backup pump just in case, because parts can be very difficult to get,
Yeah.
would be advisable, frankly.
And I'm not for sure this time if it's a pump or if it's something else, but I do know that it's happening.
Thank you.
Nancy, do we know about their COVID issues on
No,
the reservation?
I don't have that information. I think I will see if I can take a look and find it, though. I don't have it right at hand.
Are we done?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
All right, we're remaining on COVID. Nancy, who would you like in the room for this next section on the shelters?
Rich Swift and Brenda Durbin, please.
All right. Do you want Elizabeth in?
Sure, if she wants to come on in.
Elizabeth Comfort also. All right,
Right.
commissioners, this is general funds for non-congregate shelters related to COVID. Wanted to explain what we'd like to do and make sure you're supportive of this. I am, but want to run it by you first. So Nancy, would you kick it off, please?
Yes, thank you very much. So yes, you received the paperwork for a FEMA funding stream that we're wanting to apply for. In this funding stream, FEMA pays for 75%, and then so the county has to put up a match of 25%. And I'm going to have Brenda talk about that in particular in a few minutes. So what we're hoping to do is kick it off with some funding from the state that would, from the county, which is general fund. But we would be able to replace that with our ESG funds, which we can use for a FEMA federal match, which is unusual, but ESG has been able to be used for that before, and it can be used for this as well. One of the things I'm also looking into before Brenda gets started is to seeing if we could actually use CARES dollars for that match. And just to let you know too, the funding is for non-congregate sheltering, which is going to be individuals primarily that are houseless, 65 and older, and have an underlying condition. So this is a program that we want to put in place in order to help that particular population to remain healthy from COVID, as also from in the flu season as well. So Brenda, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to you so you can talk about the cycle. It gets a little, you have to think about it for a few minutes, but we want to make sure that you understand it.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Yeah, so non-congregate shelter is just as it says, shelter that is individual. Usually this takes place in a motel room. So the FEMA program is a pre-approval program. The FEMA pays for 75% of the total cost. So then what the county needs to do is identify that 25% match. And we've identified ESG funds as that 25% match. FEMA will eventually cover the 75%, but the county needs to, in effect, front that 75% until we get FEMA reimbursement. Because this is a pre-approval process, we don't expect that the FEMA reimbursement is going to take years like it can in sort of regular FEMA world, but we can't give you any assurance about how quickly that reimbursement will happen. So the spreadsheet that I put together gives you a couple of different scenarios. If we look at a 2-month reimbursement lag, the county needs to provide $900,000 up front. If we have a 3-month lag, that upfront money increases up to $1,200,000. And then if we have an additional month delay in getting that reimbursement, we're up to $1.5 million. All of these funds will eventually be paid back. The answer that we don't have for you is how quickly that payback will happen. So in a nutshell, with this short-term investment by the county, we would be able to house up to 130 houseless individuals from September through May. So that's going to give a large number of folks who are at high risk to contract COVID a safe place to live through the fall, winter, and into the spring. We know that this is a model that works, and we are hoping that we can get your approval to both apply for the program and then identify county funds that can be used until we get the FEMA reimbursement.
Ken.
Yes, this is for Gary Schmidt and for Elizabeth Comfort. So is that 900,000 that you talked about up to $1 million, $1.5 million, is that all up front in one whack, or does that go out a little bit at a time?
It would be a little bit of the time. So looking at the best case scenario, which is a 2-month delay, if we can start this program in September, which at this place is time is a little optimistic, we would see the first county funds being needed in November. So in November, we would need $300,000 and then roughly $100,000 a month through May. Again, that's assuming a 2-month turnaround time for reimbursement.
Okay. So my next question would be to Elizabeth and Gary. I know that Gary has a reserve fund for different things that we haven't accounted for going forward over the next year or so as part of our budget. Are you able to manage this that way, first and foremost?
Yes, the answer is yes. So this would come from we call it the non-departmental fund. It's basically where the general fund sits before it's distributed to departments, but there is excess, or there is funds available that does not impact any department's budget that we could use for this purpose. Because it's being reimbursed, I have confidence that this works. If it was not being reimbursed, then I would have concerns with spending these funds, but it will be reimbursed. I have a 100% guarantee that it will be reimbursed. There's no chance this would not be a reimbursable expense for us. So we're simply paying up front and then it will be paid back, coming from the non-departmental account.
And then my last question is, would we be a little bit better off if we went with a line of credit as opposed to taking it out of the general fund? Would that give you more flexibility with, considering other things that may come up?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. And I would first turn to these non-departmental funds that we have available rather than seek outside funding at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have Sonia and then Paul.
Hey, thank you. I don't know if the rest of the commission is aware of an effort that's happening at the state level. It's called the Turnkey Project, and it's an effort to utilize CARES dollars to actually purchase hotel motels, and they're looking at doing this statewide, but also to partner with local jurisdictions. I passed along the information that I received from the AOC committee to our staff, who weighed in on it and said that it is in alignment, this effort, with what we're wanting to do in Clackamas County. And Gary also let me know that, we'd requested a policy session on that, and that's in the works. My question is, would doing this prevent us from participating in that larger statewide effort? Because if we have an opportunity to leverage these one-time monies for longer term gain, I don't want us to give up that opportunity.
I'm not sure if Rich has any information on that. I wouldn't think so. I do know that other counties are doing the same thing that we're proposing here. I know that Washington County is using their CARES dollars to do the same thing, and I can't imagine that they would be doing that either if they were going to be taken out of that process. But Rich, do you have any other information?
Well, I don't know yet. Good morning, everyone. I don't know. We don't know yet what the legislature is planning on doing with their intent on CARES Act dollars at the state level. I have not heard that they are planning on essentially reaching back into what's already been distributed, because that's essentially, I think, Commissioner Fisher, what would happen. So we have not heard that they're planning on that. That would be a fairly extreme measure on their part, since so many counties actually have planned out how to use these dollars now. Would create a bit of a, I think, a crisis for many counties if they were going to choose to do that. So I'm thinking that they're looking at CARES Act dollars that the state has held back and not distributed.
Well, all I know is the information sheet that I forwarded, which is the outline, and I have it up in front of me right now. I'm happy to send it again to whoever wants it, but it's and I don't know specific funds of money, but this effort is for dollars that have to be spent by the end of December. And it's to leverage CARES dollars to basically help us in the future as we move through the recovery. So we actually have an asset instead of spending money just for the overnights. So happy to send it to whoever wants to. I just want to make sure that we aren't giving up that opportunity, or that we haven't evaluated that. And I don't know how quick this decision and this turnaround is, but these conversations at the state level are they're happening now, and there's a lot of momentum on this.
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher, I don't know that I have an answer for you. I mean, we find ourselves in a bit of a unique position, because one of the, we have been already talking with a number of facilities related to winter sheltering, ones that we've had relationships with in the past, and many of them are coming back extremely reticent to enter into relationships for this coming winter because of COVID-19. And also, congregate sheltering is very difficult to set up in terms of maintaining the types of physical distancing necessary. So we would not be able to put as many people into the different facilities we've used in the past. So we are preparing for the winter now, and so we got 2 planes landing: how to deal with the winter and shelter folk, keep people alive during cold temperatures, and then we have this potential on the state. And I don't have an answer for you because they're kind of mutual, they're kind of competing with each other if this is how the state is trying to set this up. And motel acquisitions would be tough to accomplish between now and December. That is a big lift in terms of a property acquisition.
Yeah. And also, this is FEMA dollars, and FEMA dollars has not been competing with CARES, at least for any other activities that we've been looking at. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 separate funding streams as well.
So I have a question. So with this particular project, again, it's to purchase motels. So they would be assets on our books for continuing operations and maintenance.
So this project we're talking about is actually to lease, well, Brenda, you can answer this too, but to lease rooms for those individuals. This is, I think, what Commissioner Fisher is talking about is acquisition, but ours is just to lease rooms.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm trying, because to me, I mean, do we have the capacity for, if we were to acquire based on the state model, would that be something then the counties are going to be largely responsible for in the future for O&M? And be something to be concerned about. Leasing gives us the resource sooner than later, but we may not have that ongoing. That would be the unknown for me, but I don't know if I'm completely understanding this anyway. So,
well, if we're to come to fruition, let me see if I can answer that. If it were come to fruition that we were able to buy, acquire property, and we did acquire property, yes, we would become responsible for them because those would be county-owned assets. The intent, as I understand with the state, is eventually to begin to move those properties actually into housing development, into unit development.
So there's a long-term plan. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Commissioner Savas has his hand up.
Yeah, Gary or Elizabeth, so getting just back to the source of the dollars. So, you know, obviously we get our tax monies in a couple, you know,
Tranches.
deposits, yeah, tranches, if you will. Thank you. So does those dollars reside in the non-departmental funds until they're expended, or is that where the reserves lie, or is this non-departmental money separate from reserves and separate from the tax revenue deposits?
Thank you, Commissioner. We have both reserves, which are unappropriated dollars in our coffers, as well as contingency, which is appropriated dollars in the current year budget. And the contingency dollars, we have a policy that we shoot for every year to have at least 5% in contingency. We currently have 14%. And this is part of our long-term stability in our budget plan, just to maintain good contingency and reserves. So this is the funding that we would use to front the dollars for this program. And it would be monies that we already currently have.
All right. Yeah, as far as the, thank you, Elizabeth, as far as the discussion about acquisition of facilities, I guess we need to really think about, you know, post-COVID and where we sit. So we might, you know, set ourselves up for perhaps if we were to act, and I think Rich's comments were probably on par there as far as, you know, by the time we actually went through the process of acquiring them, we'd probably have a vaccine, and we're hopefully gonna be, you know, this will all go away, so to speak, as far as the COVID aspect. But, you know, if we end up paying a premium right now to buy something, we'll be selling it probably at a loss. So I don't know how that would pencil. I don't know if we really have that many facilities right now in the county that are really vacant. I was kind of surprised to learn, I guess not, I guess in a sense, but a lot of people that are working in a dangerous environment, in essence, you know, possibly in contact with COVID, have chosen to stay in hotel rooms or some other housing, just keep their family safe. So there's been a surge in demand for whether it's Airbnbs or you know, extended stays in these kinds of facilities. So if there was an acquisition, you know, you'd also have to deal with the people that are using those that would be essentially displaced. So I think it would actually make a very complicated situation. So you wouldn't be able necessarily, if there was extended stays, be able to just throw them out on the street. So I guess that while it's an opportunity, unless there's something out there that's vacant and ready to go, and I don't know of anything, it may not really be feasible at this point in time. Let's just hope there's a vaccine around the corner. And lastly, I just want to I mentioned it earlier, but not all my colleagues were online. I'm not doing very well today. I had a MRI this morning, so I got complications from that MRI that I'm dealing with. So if I pause in and out or my voice is cracking, it's just kind of coping with the pain. So thank you.
All right. So, commissioners, we plan on moving forward with this unless you have an objection. I'm not hearing an objection, so we're going to move forward with this plan.
Do you need a motion of any kind?
No.
I'm good to go.
Okay. Great. So move forward, please, team. Thank you all very much. Next, we'll move on to our next topic, and please bring in Martine and Lamar. Commissioners, this is protest response, reimagining safety commitments. You've asked for further discussion about this, and we have Martine Koblenz, who is our County Equity and Inclusion Officer, and our guest, Lamar Wise. And Martine, if you'll introduce Lamar to answer your questions to help you move forward on next steps. So Martine, if you'd like to kick it off, and please introduce Lamar.
Good morning, commissioners and everyone. Martine Koblenz, I use she, her pronouns. And I'm happy to introduce Lamar Wise. Lamar is here to talk to you about the Reimagined Safety project, and it is a community-led and Black-centered project looking at how can we reimagine safety in Oregon and in Clackamas specifically. So he's here to talk about that, to talk about the ask in this proposal, and to share more information and to also answer questions that you might have to get some clarity on this. So thank you, Lamar, for coming. If you can just start us off kind of going through that proposal, and then we can open up for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you all so much for having me. It's been a very busy past few weeks. I first actually want to thank you all as commissioners being super engaged and super involved in terms of the discussion when we started, I want to say back in June, when we started all meeting together. It's clear that that you all have and have started to prioritize equity and inclusion. So I just wanted to thank you all for your participation thus far. But continuing on, yes, we have been talking about reimagining safety for the past few months now. At this point, just to kind of give folks some context, I started to get involved in terms of the protest and getting connected with the other Black leaders in Oregon. And what we found out and really what we figured needed to happen next was we needed to create time and space and resources for Black-led orgs, for Black-serving orgs, for community members to come together and to actually rethink like how our public safety system works. And so this idea was born out of the consistent, I would say, misdealings and really like the deteriorated relationship that a lot of community members had with law enforcement. And so we've just been thinking of ways and started to build that foundation of what does it look like for us to create a project in which we have a deep sense of community engagement, where we are holding forums, where we're gathering information via surveys, focus groups, right? A project where we also have a pretty keen legal eye attached to it, where we're running through the different models that exist, not just in the nation but internationally, in order for us to actually execute public safety in a way that makes everyone feel safe. And then what does a project look like in order for us to ensure that there are a variety of services available. For folks who don't know who I am, actually, again, my name is Lamar, but I work for AFSCME, Council 75. One of the things that we do is we represent 911 dispatchers. And so I can tell you one of the things that our 911 dispatchers, actually the folks in Clackamas often say that, there are not enough services that are available 24/7, right? Like you call in late at night, and even if the issue is mental health related, houselessness related, the only folks who are available at that time are police and fire rescue and ambulance. And so it's really about starting to rethink like what are we assigning our law enforcement in terms of responsibilities, and does that make sense? Does it make sense to have different parts of the response team be available 24/7? And what does that look like, right? If we were to put that all together, both like on a statewide level and locally. This project is actually created to coordinate all those efforts. but then to also do a deep dive and to make sure that we're giving capacity to the organizations that have been doing this work for a long time, giving them the opportunity to ensure that they have time and space to work. And so continuing on, we do have some commitments already, and some local jurisdictions that are also moving on it. And so actually just last week I was speaking with Washington County. And so it was a very robust conversation where we talked about, we were able to get some of their thoughts and feedback, but we were also able to present what our plan was for Reimagine Safety. Metro has already dedicated $100,000. We already got $40,000 from philanthropy and $5,000 from nonprofits. Our overall goal is $2.5 million, to raise $2.5 million. And at this point, we are focusing on leveraging any dollars that we get from the state and locally with philanthropy. And so in case folks didn't know, there is a Meyer Memorial Trust, for example, put out a fund. They're starting up this fund where it's about $25 million dedicated to Black and to Black serving orgs or Black projects. And so we really wanted to leverage as much of our state and local dollars with that to basically match and to ensure that this project, the life of this project, which we're hoping for that it will last at least a year, to come back and provide policy proposals to Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington County Commissions, as well as the Portland City Council, Metro, TriMet, and then the state of Oregon. And we're also thinking about engaging Lane County as well. And they have a really good system there in terms of how they use their Cahoots system, which is their mental health service that is available throughout the day and night. And so that's a little bit about what we're doing in terms of reimagining safety. Again, it's a Black-led, Black-run effort, and I'd be excited to work with you all, answer your questions, and to dive a little bit deeper as to like what we can do together, and figure out the best way to start to build, a public safety system that we can all trust and believe in. So yeah, I would love to just like give it back to you all and see what you would like to do.
Well, first off, there's a great opportunity. A new sheriff in town, a new DA in town, to really take a look at our public safety system as it currently is and what we can do better. So that's something I really look forward to. Right now, because there's a time delay before those folks actually take their positions, it's a bit more challenging, let's just say. But I would say that the Board of County Commissioners is committed to looking at the system, how to be more just, well, I don't know that that's the word, more inclusive with our partners in other counties to make sure that we're looking through a different lens or a clearer lens for diversity and inclusion. We also, I just gotta say, I'm pretty proud of the fact that our mental health folks are assigned to the sheriff's office 24 hours a day, and they have been for a while, to get out there ahead of mental health crisis and try and prevent what has occurred in many other communities. It still occurs, but we've been ahead of the, I'd say ahead of a lot of folks in how we've tried to reduce the incidence of mental health issues going astray or people losing lives when they're just out of control. So Sonia has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair Bernard. Lamar, thank you for being here. And I, as you were talking about all the things that law enforcement responds to, it really jogged my memory after the death of George Floyd. And I just, as we all were so disturbed by that, and I got on the phone and just started calling people to give me perspectives. And one of my I consider advisors, people I reach out to give me the perspective. Steve Steinberg, who's the president of the Peace Officers Association, we had a really good talk, and the one takeaway that was so strong at that time, and this was right at the beginning of June, before we convened as the group to deal with all of the asks and policy commitments, was to, the police shouldn't be going on calls that the police shouldn't go on. And your comment that 24 hours a day, it's 911, it's the police are the ones that are responding. We don't have mental health workers on their own going out on calls. Yes, they will accompany police. They will not accompany police when there is a threat, when it's a very dangerous situation. We had a situation in Welch's that was very dangerous, and mental health did not go on that call. So we really do have an interest and a commonality in, really it is reimagining. It's what is the role of police? How do we create the safety net, the services, the staff to go on those calls that the police shouldn't go on. Our sheriff deputies spend a lot of time, because who else is going to go? Nobody else goes. It's the sheriff, it's the police. And I have to kind of joke about Lake Oswego. They have a motto of no call too small. And when you talk to some of the people, it's like, well, yeah, some calls may be too small. Maybe we need to rethink how we're doing things. So tremendous opportunity. I think there's a lot of movement in this area. There's a lot of interest. We've had emails from constituents that have said we need to really look at a cahoots model. I've been doing some exploring with staff. I'm hoping that we can have a policy session before too long specifically about what we do provide, what's needed. I would like to engage our LIPSIC, our law enforcement public. What is that, Ken? What's the acronym stand for? You're our liaison.
Yeah.
It's LIPSIC.
It's LIPSIC, yeah.
It's LIPSIC.
That one always gets me.
Law Enforcement Advisory Committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's some real opportunity with engaging the community. I know, because I've had conversations with our sheriff-elect. I've had conversations in the past with our sheriff. There's so many commonalities of wanting to move forward in a constructive way. So I appreciate the leadership that you have taken, especially on getting the frame for reimagining public safety in Oregon. And I'm really in support of us really engaging in this.
Before I go to Ken, I gotta say, it amazes me that this still happens every day. We see on the news somebody dying because of law enforcement's reaction to a particular incident. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday that a young boy in a facility was killed by the security for throwing a sandwich? Come on. This is not right. Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, having had a bit of a law enforcement background myself, I can assure you that the vast majority of officers would prefer not to have to deal emotional and mental health crises kinds of incidents. You know, our Clackamas Fire District does have a Project Hope program going, where people that have mental health issues are actually calling Project Hope, and the young woman who is the counselor for that program goes to them and talks with them and works with them, and basically is kind of there as a resource to provide support so that it isn't a 911 call where the police department shows up. So there are some pieces of the puzzle, both in terms of what people do and don't want to do, as well as some of the things that are being done that really just need to be pulled together under probably a single umbrella, if you will, so that we provide better support in mental and emotional health crisis situations, providing support through, say, things like Project Hope, so that they don't escalate into a crisis that requires a 911 call. And in my experience, and like Commissioner Fisher, talking with the officers in the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, they would much prefer to have mental health professionals dealing with these kinds of issues. And then it leaves us a law enforcement team that can be focused on law enforcement appropriately, and where corrections in how they deal with different parts of the public, they can actually focus on being able to respond more appropriately to people. So I don't see this as something that our county commission wouldn't want to support. Now, financially, that's not my responsibility. Our finances are pretty tight right now, as you probably are aware. So, timing obviously is everything. Hopefully, when the new team comes on board at the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office, we will be able to have some really productive conversations and see how we go forward. Thank you.
Lamar, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say the only thing that I would add is, at this point we continue to ask local jurisdictions for about $100,000. If you can do more, fantastic, right? But we are doing our best to leverage all these dollars from philanthropy. And so, but besides that, I really appreciate all of yours time and effort and energy. And I will be made available for any follow-up questions or things that we need to do to ensure that that you all have what you need to make this move. But for the most part, just super thankful for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And of course, we will be discussing our financial commitment. We do have a budget committee today. Our budget, I happen to think the budget committee is a very important part of making this decision of how there's no question we want to invest, but whether we can afford it now is the question, and we'll talk about it. So Gary, let's put it on the discussion for the budget committee. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Sonia.
I think Martine was raising her hand. I can talk. Martine's probably going to answer my question, I bet. So go ahead.
I just have a clarifying question, Lamar. It's that the Reimagining Safety, this is going to be beyond just in this year. So is there a possibility that we can commit dollars into the future, commit for now and commit some into the future, equaling to a total amount?
That is what Metro is doing. So that would, I think they're doing some now, some later, and I think actually a couple other jurisdictions are thinking about doing that. Unsure yet, so I don't want to say anything, but yeah, that's I think the split years is something that folks have been thinking about.
Sonia, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, so Lamar, I know that this is going to be a long, ongoing process. and I know there's a tremendous sense of urgency, and I, for one, am not interested in waiting until we have a new sheriff or a new district attorney, but I would like us to engage now, and I think we should engage as a board with our current sheriff, our sheriff-elect, and I think our district attorney and our district attorney-elect on this issue, and to really make sure, I mean, to really get the buy-in on what we're doing here, because we will be so much more successful. One-on-one conversations, they've been excellent on these issues, but we're looking at really making a commitment. So as you may know, I'm not sure if we talked about it much, but we have made a substantial commitment with coalitions of communities of color to really look at Clackamas County, do a full assessment. And I think, and that's going to be a 3-year, I believe, project. Is that right, Martine? 2-year. So we're going to be getting a lot of data information, and I just want to make sure that we are working in concert, we're coordinating, we're leveraging the information, and we are working together, because it's all of this.
Yeah. Marcus Mundy, who's the executive director for Coalitions of Communities of Color, is also one of the founders of Reimagine Oregon, which we unveiled a few weeks ago. So the part of this project is to make sure that we are in coordination with other jurisdictions and other stakeholders. And so I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because that information would be super helpful in terms of this project as well, right? So I actually see a lot of ways in which we could incorporate some of that, some of the, their findings and data.
All right, Ken?
Yeah, my concern with respect to the sheriff and the district attorney is that the current serving ones will no longer be there. And I want to be sure that the new people coming in are committed to the same things that we're going to be committed to here. So that's the genesis of my concern. The new people are the ones that are going to be here for the next 4 years to make things happen. And the others will have retired. So it's their commitment, the new people's commitment to this effort that is crucial to its success long term. And that's, as I said, the genesis of my concern on it.
I guess I'd like to add is, certainly I won't be here either, but if I can help move the board to a commitment as a board, I would appreciate doing that. All right, anything else? Martine, Lamar?
No, thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I thought last meeting I was on, your comments were great, and that's why we invited you here. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary, what's on the agenda next?
All right. Next, if we could bring in Dave Cummings, and I believe he's using the name Birdman. That's Dave Cummings. Christina. So this is to talk about next steps on broadband expansion and internet service provider. Commissioners, I sent you a memo that's in your packet. I'll tee this off. You've been talking about should Clackamas County become an internet service provider for the last 4 years. We've kind of had some starts and stops over that time. You last discussed this in April and May of this year. After you last discussed this, I have conferred with staff and technology services, and I've talked to each of you individually. And here's my proposal, our proposal going forward. And there are 3 steps. First is Clackamas County will continue to apply for state and federal grants where we partner with an existing internet service provider to provide expanded broadband coverage to Clackamas County. So we are not becoming an ISP yet, but we are partnering with other entities that are currently an ISP, such as SandyNet, where we've already received some successful grants partnering with SandyNet, and I believe you're about to hear a request for one this afternoon. The second step would be to seek input from the community, from businesses, education, residents, to actually ask them how do we solve our broadband connectivity issue in Clackamas County? Rather than dictating an answer and then selling it to the public, let the public tell you what they feel the community needs. We've really not done that yet. So this would be a very full, robust public involvement effort with the community. Third, to release a request for proposals to once and for all hire a contractor to do a full business plan of what it would be for Clackamas County to potentially become an internet service provider, what the pros and cons of that would be, and outline what steps we would need to take. Again, we've had some starts and stops on that, but have, as of yet, not completed a full business plan for you. Those are the 3 steps that staff is recommending we go forward on to have forward momentum. I'm seeking your head nod of approval today that you agree with this plan so that we may hit the ground running and get moving. So Dave, do you have any comments to add to anything I've just shared?
Okay, well, first of all, let me apologize. It looks like it's taken my Zoom password and plugged it in as my ID. I go, Birdman, how did that come up there? No, I think what we have now, this RFP that's going out, which is what we attempted to do a couple of years ago, is going to be very comprehensive. The company will come in and give us a very good look at the county, where we need services, where we're going, what we can do, and the economics of it. I think this is a wonderful plan and will work very well for us. And we may be surprised with the results. It may come back and go, yeah, you got a lot of need out there, but you shouldn't be an ISP. Or it might come back and go, yeah, to get it done, you really need to do it, and this is how you do it. And some of the companies that are interested in coming in and bidding on this RFP have done some work for other states and cities and have done a very good job. So we're very excited about this and want to get out and talk to the communities and see what the people say. So I think it's a good group effort this time, and I think we're going to get some good stuff out of it. That's all I have to say.
You're on mute, Jim. You're on mute.
Mute. I have
Thank
my
you,
hand.
Birdman. Martha's hand is up.
Well, thanks, Dave. I really I worked with your brother years ago in Salem, so I know the good
Yeah,
work.
I'm sorry about that.
No, he was great to work with.
You know my brother.
Yeah, I know. I came away knowing that the county compared to Salem was just light years ahead of things.
Oh, absolutely.
But I wanted to thank you for this because the key thing is when we talk to our superintendents in our school districts, what I've been hearing from them directly is as they move into uncertainty on how they're going to do the face-to-face school term, how important the access to the internet is going to be for the kids that don't right now have that access. So for me, that's something that I'd really like to see us look at and see where the gaps are and really move with them to make sure that those kids get what they need for high-speed access so they can actually it can be an equitable experience for their education. And Ken and I, we were on that conversation with the school districts, and they're not as interested in my mind as who, what, where, when, and how. They just want to see it happen somehow. So I don't know where the providers are with this. I know that they've been a little reticent, but I'm hopeful we can pull them along, because if they're not pulled along, I do think that we need to move ahead with something more substantial. That's the key to me. We either do a partnership for access or we just provide the access. And I'm hopeful they'll move along. And Ken, I don't know if you have any comments to make about that. So,
He certainly does.
I bet he does, yes. That's why I'm asking. Go ahead.
Ken?
Well, in my opinion, we should have done this 3.5 years ago, and we would be 3.5 years ahead of where we are. I think it's interesting that it took COVID to finally get a lot of people throughout this country to recognize the need for high-speed internet throughout the entire country, no matter what it takes. The model I've used many times in my discussions is the same model for the electrification, rural electrification and telephones in the 1930s. It wouldn't happen without government. That's how it happened. And I believe that it's going to require a push by government to make this happen for high-speed internet. That doesn't mean that we have to own it all. We can partner with people, as is being proposed with Sandy Net as an example. But where that's not happening, we need to do it, because then there is no question about the need. The schools have made it clear that they're on board. They just want to have high-speed internet as soon as possible for the schools and for their students. Our business community, through our Economic Development Council, has already given us a letter of support. They did that 1.5 years or 2 years ago. So I'm 110% ready to move this forward as quickly as possible. I still am committed to what I said 3.5 years ago, which is we will partner with anybody who will partner with us. But if they don't partner, let's us get it done.
So, Ken, are you involved at the national level with the broadband initiative that NACO's doing? Because you probably should be on their committee.
Only peripherally, but I'm not on that committee with NACO at this point, but probably a good idea.
I think you ought to do it, just saying, because I think that it will give you the national perspective as well. That will certainly help move forward. So, okay.
So my thumb is up, both of them. And if I had more, there would be more up.
Tanya.
Well, Ken, you have 2 toes. You could put those up. That could be quite the sight on Zoom.
Whatever it takes.
I just think the success is in the journey, and so much of the work that we do. So going through and doing the community outreach, I think, is critical. And I am also thumbs up.
Okay, so am I. So is Martha, and Paul is, Paul?
Yep, good to go. I think it's a great plan, and I really like what Gary said. I think it does have to be community driven. I think we really do need to understand what the community really wants and needs and expects, because in the end, we're going to need them, and those are the people we're serving. So it makes sense. So I think it's a great plan.
All right, you got a direction on that, Gary?
We have direction. We're moving forward starting today on these three-pronged approach, and we'll keep you posted as we go. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Birdman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go back to Alcatraz.
I'll never live that down.
Right. Next, we're running out of time. We're moving on now to an Economic Development Commission update, which you have asked for, commissioners, and a discussion of the Economic Development Commission representation, which you've also asked for. So we have Laura Zentner, Director of Business and Community Services, Sarah Ekman, Deputy Director, to discuss. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Chair Bernard, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. As mentioned, my name is Laura Zentner, Director of Business and Community Services, and with me is Sarah Ekman. On August 4th, the Board of County Commissioners asked and expressed interest in several issues regarding the Economic Development Commission. So we're here today to provide you some of those answers. So I will just turn it over to Sarah, and she can go talk to you about the questions that you had and give you an update.
Great, thank you, Laura. Good morning, Chair Bernard and Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you today. I also want to mention that a Business and Economic Development Coordinator, John LaGarza, is viewing this too in case there are additional questions. But what we've prepared for you today is some briefing points based on the questions that we heard raised on August 4th. So I have a basic outline I'm going to run through just to give you some information, and then we should have time for some questions as well. So at a high level, several of you attend or have involvement with various aspects of our Economic Development Commission, so this will be a refresher. But our 25-member board is an entity that meets monthly. We currently do have a high number of vacancies at 9. However, we have just finished an active recruitment that I'll talk about in a minute. The board does have an executive committee that right now is made up of 4 members who also meet monthly in advance of the commission meeting so that we have some strategic discussions in advance of the larger meeting. One of the things that's going on in the executive committee, hey John, in the executive committee is a revision of the bylaws, and so we are actively working on that so that we can incorporate
some new information, and one of those things will be the newly created seat for the Grand Ronde tribe, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We are working hard to include opportunities for feedback from the EDC to you as the Board of County Commissioners, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And one of the other things we want you to be aware of, as Laura's mentioned on a few occasions, we are going to be engaging in some strategic planning for economic development in the county that will be tied to MFR very closely. And as part of that, we are going to have whomever we hire closely look at the EDC and provide us some recommendations on how to best move forward. Because as you raised on August 4th, there are some concerns about how we're structured and how we've been operating, and we want to be sure that we're following best practices as we move forward. So in terms of recruitment, we did just close at the end of June a recruitment that's been open since September. I wanted to make you aware of that. We do have a difficult time recruiting for the EDC, and we've tried a few different approaches. One of those is asking members to make phone calls. So we've done that, and still at the end of having it open from September through June, we had 3 applications. We did conduct 2 interviews last week, and those 2 individuals will be recommended to you for approval at a future date. And then there's an additional interview taking place this week. One of the candidates we interviewed is from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and she had made her application even prior to the seat being created, so it's kind of a perfect alignment as she would be the representative for the tribe. We do see a lot of challenges and opportunities in the EDC, and so we hear and echo your raising the issue of needing stronger business representation. And we've looked at that, and we'll be considering how we can make that happen. So potentially with some dedicated seats. One of you mentioned perhaps by employee count, those kinds of things. And that will be included in our strategic discussion of how we want to move forward. We also want to work to ensure everyone in our community is represented as we move forward. And so we're going to be taking that equity, diversity, and inclusion lens and looking at how we might need to adjust our membership to fit that. Something else that's come up is using Zoom-based meetings. Because our meeting takes place once a month at 7:30 in the morning, it lasts for 2 hours. We realize that it's not always doable for everyone to drive to the meeting location, be there present, but we think that right now we have an opportunity to perhaps pull new people in because we can meet remotely. And then we want to look at how going forward we can have some type of a hybrid solution to an in-person and an online presence so that people have some options for participating. And then we are looking at various ways to recruit and retain business representation across our industries, especially some of our core industries. So one of the things several of you attended last December was our Grow Clackamas event, and that was an example of how we're trying to connect more directly with businesses and bring new business interest in. So we wanted to give you this overview today to kind of provide you with some background information, let you know where we're going, and see if you have any further questions.
Any questions?
Not at this point.
Don't see any questions.
Yeah,
I
do.
do. Paul.
Yeah, I do. Just quickly, Sarah, could you or John or anyone, what is the mission statement for the EDC?
That's a great question. I would need to go pull it up unless John has it handy. We can get that back to you real quickly. I don't have it right here.
Yeah, it seems to me from my experiences when we are part of an organization, whatever that organization may be or committee it may be, that that we're in alignment with the mission, and that everything we do and everyone that's involved is part of that, and they're contributing to that mission. And it seems to me that ought to be right at the forefront. I went on the website just now and I didn't see it there.
Okay, we appreciate that. Yeah, we'll pull it up and definitely bring that up at the next meeting. I think there's a high level of awareness of the need to make sure that we're aligning with core things such as the mission statement. So appreciate that point.
I do not see any other questions. Thank you all very much. And Gary, what's up next?
Okay, yes, thank you. All right, moving on. This is for you commissioners. Your Board of Commissioner meetings back in person in the board hearing room. Staff has presented their analysis for you, which is in the form of a memo, which I sent to you. I really want to thank the Public and Government Affairs staff, especially Dylan Blaylock, Rich Marvin, Garrett Teague. They did phenomenal work preparing the room and presenting quite a memo for you to consider of options, as well as our technology services staff and our county administration staff. The hearing room is now completed, the technological upgrades for you to have both an in-person and a Zoom meeting concurring at the same time. But it comes down to this. You had committed, or you had shared, that after Labor Day, I had asked you, wait till after Labor Day before you come back and do in-person meetings. So this memo has 3 options for you of what the in-person meeting would look like. And it's on page 3 of your memo if you want to look at it. But the quick overview is there's the split dais option, where because of the 6 feet distancing, which we still have to maintain, 3 of you would sit on the top tier of the dais. 2 of you would sit on the lower level, where currently county council and the clerk sits. And then the rest of the staff, we'd add extension tables to the bottom of the dais for a staff to sit at. That's awkward because which 3 of you sit at the top and which 2 of you sit at the bottom? You would not be on the same level. Staff would be just split down further. That would allow up to 8 members of the public. Here's the catch: no more than 8 members of the public in the room at one time. They'd be held outside the room in one of our conference rooms and in a waiting area. The second option is a U-shaped table on the floor of the hearing room. This is the format you last met in person in March before we went remote. So all of you would be on a U-shaped table, 1 table per commissioner and staff. And that way it's equal. You're all at the same level on the floor of the hearing room. The downside is because of the configuration, we'd have to keep that room off limits for any other meeting because the microphones would have to be set in a certain way. And it limits the public to only 6. Only 6 members of the public could be in the room because we're taking the majority of the floor. The third option is the dais Zoom, which assumes that only 3 of you would choose to come back in person, which solves the issue. The 3 commissioners at the top of the dais, staff where we normally sit at the bottom, and then 1 extra table for the remaining staff, and then up to 8 members of the public can be in the room. So I'm seeking your guidance which format you'd want, because we'll have to take the next 2 weeks to set up for any of these 3 options that you choose to make. I will say this, from my opinion, commissioners, Zoom is working just fine. You have had more levels of engagement than you ever have before. The fact that you can see each other at the same time is helpful. It's a different form of communication, but in my opinion, it's an effective form of communication. The downside is there are members of the public that don't have internet access, and therefore they're missing out on the chance to talk with you in person. Yet you know how many people come in person over history, so we're talking a handful at most that may choose to come in person. However, I'm seeking your guidance, how you would like to do this, in person or not, after Labor Day, and how many of you feel comfortable coming back for in-person meetings. We can still do Zoom. So if you choose to stay remote, commissioners, any of you, you could still do Zoom. And those who choose to come in person can be in person. But my opinion is that's not as effective if some of you are in the room and some of you are not. It just creates a further disconnect. So I'm giving a lot of my opinion, and it's really your decision to make. Happy to answer any questions you have, and if you can, give us guidance of what you'd like to do in 2 weeks.
Sonia and then Martha.
So Gary, if we are all in an indoor space, then we all need to wear masks. Is that right?
If you cannot maintain the 6 feet of distance, you have to wear a mask, including during your meeting. So if 3 of you are on the dais, that is not 6 feet distance. So the 3 of you at the dais would be wearing your masks during the entire meeting. Yes.
Okay. And then my next question, I believe the governor's order is to telework as much as possible still. Is that right?
That is correct. And commissioners, you were emailed the draft of a state OSHA memo that may be coming out that further outlines exactly what the governor has already said. You must maintain 6 feet of distance. If you can't, you must wear a mask in the workplace for all workplaces. You must have shields up where the public is. All things we're already doing, but it kind of enforces that from a state labor mandate.
Okay. Well, given, I mean, the order that as much as possible we need to telework, I kind of see our role as leaders and being part of the solution, and where we are able to be functional and do our work, I think we should honor that. I'm hoping we get through the fall without a resurgence and we get a vaccine and we'll all be back together. But I'm not interested in going against what the governor's recommending during this time.
Martha.
Microphone.
Can you unmute her?
Yeah, Christina, can you unmute Martha, please?
There we go. All right, so it seems like a lot of work for just 8 people who may come to our meetings. And then the second piece of this, my pragmatic question is, there would have to be a lot of extensive cleanup and disinfecting and things of that sort. Is that a good use of staff time? You know, and I think Zoom's working fine, but I understand maybe some of the public think we need to come back, but I'm okay with steady as she goes. I just don't, I'm not sure the extra effort's going to really be conducive to really having staff focus on what they need to be focused on, and us, but that's just my opinion, so.
Martha, I'm 100% behind you and Sonia. You know, the reason I thought it was important to get Zoom in there and the technology there is for the future. Right now, you're right. We would have to sterilize the place every time we have a meeting. That's very expensive, time consuming, and there's a lot of other work for people to do. I think Zoom is working excellent. Attendance, like right now, 23 people. That's probably staff. A lot of those are staff probably, but we've had hundreds of people on our Zoom meetings. We are reaching more people now than we ever have. And I think that's a real positive thing. Last night we had quite a large group, and I don't see any reason to do anything what we're doing. And like Sonia said, the governor's recommendation is that we, if we can, continue the virtual meetings. Paul. Paul?
He's on mute. Paul's on mute.
Yeah, you're off. Go ahead. Now you're back on.
There's something wrong. I got a deal come up saying we're all on mute. We're all muted, and I can't even unmute myself. So
well,
whoever's
we hear you.
Well, whoever's running the program needs to take off this deal where it mutes. I've never seen that before, but I can't unmute myself. If you got a flag that says the host will has us all muted. So fix that, please. Yeah, my comment, I'll go with the flow, but I do want to say that while there appears to be a number of folks that are joining the meetings, the level of participation from my view and my experience is less. And a lot of the people that would normally attend meetings aren't attending the meetings. And we have a new group of people that are attending meetings, and perhaps it's due to the convenience of Zoom and the fact that they're connected and they are comfortable using the technology, but there's a lot of people that are not. Or there's a lot of people that don't have good internet access or good devices. Maybe they have great internet access, but they have a inferior device that can keep up with the speed. So those are the kinds of things I've kind of heard of. So while again, we are seeing better numbers in certain areas. That's why I'm looking forward to getting back to normal. I think the combination of the two would be just fantastic.
Right. Ken, you want some input on this?
No, it seems it's the consensus of the majority of the board is to continue as we are going. Probably my personal preference would be to come back to the office, but I understand other people's reluctance and concern, and I'm not that heavily invested in having to go back to the office just for the meeting. I would rather be back in the office for working purposes, quite frankly. I don't feel all the time that I am in touch with issues that are important to me as a commissioner as much, because I don't get to have the kind of face-to-face conversations with people that you're able to have in an office. And I don't think that Zoom is a great communicating medium. It's not much better than texts and emails as far as I'm concerned. It's fine for data, but not for conversations.
Yeah, well, I see how emotionally you are invested in this from the video. I'm just kidding. Tanya. You can't unmute herself. There.
Okay, yay! Boy, we got gremlins in the Zoom today. One thing that I think would be awesome, and I really thought about this last night at our NCPRD board meeting, is if when one of the public members wants to speak to us, if they could just be brought in as a square so we can see them. I would love that for citizen or public comment or for public hearings. If there's an easy way to do that, I don't think it should be that difficult. I mean, for me saying that it wouldn't be that difficult, but I would love it if we could add that to moving forward.
What do you mean a square?
The square, Jim, am I above you or under you right now?
You're right next to me.
Oh,
so you mean a picture, the video?
Yeah, you're below me in my Zoom square.
So are you suggesting a video?
Yeah, that they come in. If they are on Zoom, that we bring them into the room to give their public testimony.
If you're inputting it in when we make this switch and you're like, well, this is kind of confusing, like I'd rather address it there, and then we just kind of come to an agreement that like, oh, well, we'll just either average it out for all departments because ABC listings kind of do that.
I think Garrett.
Hey, Garrett, you're talking. We hear you. That was interesting, wasn't it?
All right. Okay. So first, we're having a muting issue. Christina's on it. I'm sorry. It's not purposeful, everyone. Please relax. We're getting this fixed. You've been blocked from unmuting yourself. Krista, you just fixed it because I just unmuted myself. Garrett was not talking to you. Ignore what he said. The challenge is security, commissioners, because we can't confirm if someone were to do this, called the Zoom bomb. If they were to show an inappropriate picture, we can't always guarantee we know who the person is, especially if it's a name we don't recognize. And it's happened so frequently, and these meetings are live. There's no edit button. And in fact, many of our staff have been a witness of some horrid images that have been shown that have been violent and offensive. So that is why, and this is consistent with other jurisdictions, we don't show the video of a non-staff member. So I'd like to maintain that unless you feel strongly about it.
No, thank you, Gary. I didn't know that. I don't want to be Zoom bombed.
Paul.
Thank you, Gary. That's what I was going to just share with everyone. I guess there was a pretty bad incident in Lake Oswego, in fact. So this is a problem that's nationwide. So we got to be really careful. And I think staff are guiding us in the correct fashion. Thank you.
So if I may, I'm hearing then that you will continue your Zoom meetings, at least into September. We can revisit that in September. As far as face-to-face meetings, I want to briefly talk to you about that as well. Of course, you can, I was considering or thinking after Labor Day, we'd open our county admin office back to the public. I am suggesting though to you by appointment only. You can make appointments with people to come into your office. However, all 5 of you cannot be in the office at once. because then we're violating our social distance practices. You cannot bring the public back to your individual offices. They would have to come to the main conference room. You'd have to wear a mask. So, I mean, here's the reality, commissioners. You'd have to wear a mask in the conference room when you meet with a member of the public on site. Before and after your meetings, staff would clean up for you, disinfect the room, the chairs, the tables. It's a lot of work. I'm not saying we can't do it. We're here to serve you. But there's a consequence when you come back into the office. So I'm just offering you, you can do that now, work with your policy advisor, but it will not be the way it was before March. We have to stagger your attendance, stagger the appointments, give plenty of time between appointments so we can clean. You'd be wearing a mask the whole time. So the question is, if you want to meet off site, you can do that at any time right now at a coffee shop or in a park. Now, when the weather turns, that will make it more challenging. So all to say, talk to your individual policy advisor what your plans would be, but I'm going to ask them to coordinate with all of you so you don't all choose to come into the office at the same time. So,
all right.
the proposal is by appointment only after Labor Day, and we'll work with you individually what that looks like.
All right. What's up next? Should take lunch?
Not yet. So almost finished. Board recess. So commissioners, you are on a recess between next week for the next 2 weeks, August 24th through September 7th. This is your last week of official business. You'll have your business meeting this Thursday, of course, and then you will not meet again as a board until Wednesday, September 9th. We're moving your Tuesday policy session that week to Wednesday. You've already agreed to this because of the Labor Day holiday. When you go on recess per the county code, I have signing authority on your behalf. My belief is I only will sign something if it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I'll ask staff to wait until you return. I will be in contact with each of you if there's any crisis or an emergency beyond our current state of emergency. I'll be in constant contact with you while also respecting your right to take a little break, which you deserve. So just wanted to remind you of that as we go into recess after this week. Your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, August 20th. You do have a full agenda. You have a Housing Authority consent agenda. You have 2 presentations, one on the 2020 National Association of Counties Achievement Awards, and a presentation of 4-H programs and projects. This would be the week we'd be at the county fair, but because it's been postponed this year, we're bringing 4-H to you. So we'll do that at your meeting next week on Zoom. Then you'll have a discussion item on the purchase and sale agreement and deed to Parrot Creek Child and Family Services. After 10 years, this is finally completed, so you'll be able to finalize that decision. And then you do have a long consent agenda, nothing that seems controversial. However, if you do have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday. The only remaining item, commissioners, is commissioner communications.
Who wants to start? Okay, Ken?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Martha?
Nope, we're all good.
Okay. Sonia?
Yeah, so first off, I am going to be working with the steering committee of the Children's Levy, Yes for Clackamas Kids. So I will be, we have our first meeting tomorrow at 5:30. So I let the folks know that I will participate from 5:30 to 6 because we have our town hall on hearing from the community and listening session regarding racism at 6. But I will keep you guys updated. I'm hoping that if any of you would like to join this effort, I would love to have you join. I am hearing through the grapevine that Paul will be joining, which will be awesome. And we'll keep you updated as I get more information. And then another thing I just wanted to mention, we all received an email from Gary Schmidt today letting us know that Mary Jo Cartagena has announced her retirement. And I'm kicking and screaming about her retiring. I don't want her to retire. I love working with Mary Jo. She's absolute gift to the county for 12 years. Just so have enjoyed working with her, but I just couldn't let this day go by without mentioning public comment. She's adored, appreciated, loved by so many of us, And while she will definitely be missed at Clackamas County, I'm going to refuse to miss her because I'm going to stay connected with her as a lifelong friend. She is just precious and wonderful and incredible. So anyway, those are my communications that I have for today, and I will, if I have more to share on Thursday on any updates, I will do that.
Thank you, Sonia. Paul?
Not much today. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'd just like to also mention, I've known Mary Jo since she was, this tall, we're pretty young. I'll miss her too, but I, like Sonia, plan on continuing that relationship. And soon as we can have her over for dinner, ride a cow, pet a chicken, we're going to do exactly that. So with that, Gary, we'll be back at 1:30. Yes.
Yes, 1:30 p.m. Yes.
All right. Thank you. See you guys at 1:30.
All right.
Bye.